Awesome. All right. Well, we will, it's 11:15 and we have a lot of information to be jam packed into this session. So I am going to get us started. First of all, my name is Valerie Lockhart and I am the Executive Director for Code Savvy. Code Savvy is a nonprofit here in Minnesota, and our mission is to interrupt and counteract existing gender, racial, and socioeconomic gaps in computing by equipping youth and educators with the knowledge, skills, and support to create with technology. We do that through a number of programs. We have our Explore programs, which are kind of like intro to technology courses, little sessions for kids to get hands-on experience and start to understand programming. We have experience programs, which are a little bit longer programs where particularly girls can come in and learn app development over 12 weeks through our Technovation challenge. And then our Educate programs are for teachers across the state to learn how to integrate computer science into their classrooms and be a support for their students as they learn technology. And then our e-learning are things like we're doing today, where we do webinars and seminars, and we have a podcast where we kind of introduce computer science and technology ideas and make them more accessible to people. So that's kind of an overview of Code Savvy. The reason we are kind of hosting this session today is because entrepreneurial thinking is kind of cooked into most of our programming. Even if you don't start a business, the skills that you gain through entrepreneurial thinking are beneficial if you take any kind of leadership role in the future. So we kind of build those things in and feel that they're important for people to understand. So today we're going to give you a high level look at some of those things, some of those skills. And then we're going to hear from a panel of women who are business owners and who are going to share their insights with us. After that panel, we'll wrap up with a Q&A section. So be sure to note any questions that you have for the end. We'll try to get to all of those. Feel free to turn your captions on if that is not showing up for you. And then the recording of this session will be available through Twin Cities Startup Week after the sessions are over. So we will kick off into, let's see, there we go. Kind of an introduction of why we're here and talking about this. So according to Forbes.com, about half of all small businesses survive past the 5-year mark. This is not an excuse not to start a business. This is actually good. When you think about the grand scheme of things, when there's hundreds of millions of thousands of businesses being started, the fact that half of them survive that 5-year mark is actually super impressive. And entrepreneurship looks different for everyone, but there are definitely some good practices and tips to keep in mind as you decide to make the journey into being your own boss. A little background of mine, I have actually had my own business for the last 10 years. In addition to running Code Savvy, I own a company called Ninja Media. We do media, website development, photos, audio, and live stream business. So that is, I know this stuff well. Today, we're going to discuss some of the things that you can incorporate into your own thinking and your own practices that will help make success more likely and more likely to put you into that 50% that actually make it past the 5-year mark. So the first thing I want to talk about is mindset. This is really the main concept to understand. If you understand this, the rest kind of falls into place. Failure is the pathway to success. Manifesting is the key. And if you can imagine it, if you can't imagine it, it won't happen. So you kind of have to do whatever it takes to get yourself in the mindset of success. And the way that I find is helpful is to show gratitude. If I experience something that's negative, I try to find the silver lining in it and find some reason to be thankful that it happened. Out of every bad thing comes some good. And if you can find it and focus on that, more good things will come. So what I like to try to do for myself is imagine, like, what would it feel like if everything actually worked out? Get in that feeling and like put yourself in that mind space. And then even if it doesn't work out, you're still ahead and you're still more prepared for when it does. So that's kind of one thing that kind of the foundation of what I think is super important when you're running a business, is just to imagine what it's like if it succeeds, and then you will be more likely to have it succeed. Next, we'll talk about networking, because in any business, no matter what the industry is, this is important. It's not a dirty word, and it doesn't have to be hard. The hardest part is just showing up and making yourself available. There's a saying that you have to build your well before you're thirsty. So you learn how to meet people, how to make connections. I really like to use accomplishment intros. And if you're not familiar with that, there's a little graphic on the screen. If you know, two people, X and Y. X is the owner of a great little restaurant that has nice event space. And Y is, I think I got that flipped, but Y is an accomplished event planner that is always looking for space to host meetings. The way that you do an accomplishment intro is you say, hey, X, meet Y. You tell them why they should know each other, what they have in common, why you think they're amazing, and why you think that they should know each other. It creates good feelings for everybody involved. And it also has you as the connector. So there's that. They're going to remember how they met each other. And hopefully, if there's business referrals in the future, they'll remember and introduce people to you. So that can help open doors. It can help your business grow. It's really amazing to see what happens if you ask for help from your network. And it's a way that I've been very successful in making connections for both my business and my organization. So I think it's a super helpful thing to know. From that networking, we kind of go into the hard thing of selling. Particularly for women, selling can be a really difficult thing to embrace. It's really important that we get comfortable with it. We know our worth as business owners, and that we know our market, and we have to learn how to overcome that fear of negotiating and asking for what we want. It can be really hard to secure traditional funding in the startup world, particularly for women. And so knowing that there are really good resources out there like NABO, Minnesota, Women Venture, some of those incubators in the Twin Cities. We have a ton of different resources here in the state, and a lot of small business programs that are available to help us. To talk a little bit more about selling and the importance of that skill set, I would like to introduce Fiona. Is it Gelatley? I didn't ask the pronunciation. Gellatley. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. But I want to introduce Fiona and have her kind of give some of her experience. She is the VP of Sales at Episode 6, which is a payments and is it banking as a service?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Technology provider. So Fiona, if you want to take it over.
Thanks, Val. Great to meet everyone. As you know, you've seen my bio. I've been in financial technology for probably coming up on 17 years now, as I look at the time. I reached out to Val at Code Savvy because I feel like there's a huge opportunity for women in sales, in technology, in STEM in general. And so I felt like, I want to bring attention to, if you're interested in STEM, you maybe don't necessarily have to be a scientist, or an engineer. But if you're interested in those fields, there is an opportunity for you to be very successful in sales. And so that's kind of the correlation between today. I know a lot of you are entrepreneurs and you're going to be selling every day. I'm just trying to take the tact of, introducing young women to intentionally choose sales as a career. I personally fell into it. I had a marketing background. I thought I was going to be a marketer. I worked for a couple of local companies, and it wasn't until I joined a company called Regis Corporation that owned 30,000, 30 global brands, 30,000 locations, where I really got introduced to technology and sales. I think it's very important because if you can bring a very unique combination of knowing technology, maybe you're a developer or a coder, you're in healthcare, you're in financial services, but you also have those characteristics that can help or make people very successful in sales, you have a very unique opportunity to be successful in sales. And so just a little bit before I jump into my story more is, studies and research shows that, the global workforce is 50% made up of women. 1/3 represent B2B sales, and only 12% of that 1/3 of women hold those highly coveted sales leadership roles. And, throughout my career, I've experienced it, I've seen it. I'm here and I'm passionate about helping young women choose sales as a career path. Because the research also shows that when women are well represented, profits are 50% higher than companies where they're not. Women who lead sales teams achieve higher quota and win rates than their male counterparts. And I can back this up because I've seen it throughout my 17 years in my career. And so it's an exciting opportunity for young women. And, as I mentioned, I was at Regis Corporation, gift cards, everyone knows them. They were just starting to come into the space when I was there, and they asked me to lead a team to develop this technology. And so I was like, hey, yeah, I've always been an early adopter of technology, whether it's through mobile commerce or just, home technology. I've encouraged my kids, probably unlike most parents, to get a mobile phone and use it. And so I've always been very interested in it. And, I really started getting into sales when I had to take that Regis brand and convince third-party distributions to take our brand into their location and sell it. So if you go into Target and you see all the gift cards in the check lane, that's kind of what I'm referring to. You can buy a brand like, Buffalo Wild Wings at Target now. So I started getting into selling that way. And a company that I was negotiating with said, once we were done signing the contract, hey, do you want to join our team? We were very impressed with your selling skills. And I was like, what do you mean? So again, I kind of fell into it. And I think that it's an exciting opportunity for women, especially in technology and coding, computer science. And, I'm helping mentor a lot of young women in choosing this path. And I know it can seem very intimidating, but, there's some key characteristics of people that are successful in sales. They have grit, they have patience. I was once told that I was pleasantly persistent, and I took that as a huge compliment. If you think about STEM and, being an entrepreneur, at the end of the day, you're really trying to solve a problem for somebody, your customer, right? So if you can be a good listener, if you can be very curious and have empathy with your prospects, you are going to be able to successfully help them solve the problem that they're facing. Make sense? And so that's what I live and breathe every day is how can I help this company solve their problem with whatever I have to offer. And I use my grit and my patience and my persistence and my competitive nature and help them solve these problems. And if you can do that, there are a lot of benefits to sales. And some of them are just the merit that you achieve, the accolades of your performance. And just to be perfectly honest, there's a lot of financial incentive that I also think can help women become financially independent and secure. So that's something that I've experienced throughout my career. Been able to raise, a family on this job and have been very secure in my role. So not only is it very rewarding from a personal satisfaction, but it can be financially motivating as well. And so, today there's an opportunity for young women who are interested in technology and possess those skill sets of maybe they're good at engineering or they're really interested in science. It's very unique in the technology space to have that knowledge, and in combination with the characteristics of sales, because what that does is it lends a lot of credibility and it builds trust in the relationship of who you're selling to and, what they're evaluating. My experience, I don't come from a technical background. I've always been interested in it, but it doesn't come naturally to me. Like, I wouldn't say I would ever be a good mathematician, but I could sell products maybe to a school, technology that supports learning math. And the way I've had to overcome that is just, really understanding the product, understanding the technology, being curious about it, and asking a lot of questions. But for those people that it inherently comes natural and they can sell as well, that is a very strong winning combination for success in the industry. I work with a lot of women that have both those talents and they do very well. So, again, I know I don't have a ton of time, but, for me, it's about bringing awareness to B2B sales in the technology or STEM space to women that want to be entrepreneurial. Don't shy away from it because you think you need to be an extrovert and super competitive. That's not what it's about. It's about helping your customers solve problems and having some of those key characteristics that will help you be successful in this type of industry. So that's what I wanted to share today. I'm open to questions. I'm open to follow up after. You can reach me on LinkedIn. But that was really the intent of this session, and why I reached out to Val is to help young women intentionally think about a career in sales or STEM or being an entrepreneur and being confident that they can achieve success.
Thank you so much, Fiona. That's really good points that you made, and ties in a lot with some of the other skills that go along with entrepreneurship. So I really appreciate your insight today.
And thank you for having me.
Yeah. That kind of brings us to our next thing to talk about, which is technology, which you touched on a lot. Technology can be such a good fulcrum for small businesses, whether it's productivity apps or HR services when you do have your employees for the first time, tax tracking. If there's graphic design or things that you need help with, you can go to places like Fiverr or other online markets and tap into resources that you might not have as a kind of startup. It's a really good way to free yourself up and free up some mental space so that you can focus on your business and let technology kind of pull things off of your plate. So you have the space to do that. So on the screen, you'll see there's the tech as the fulcrum, and there's this huge outcome and very little effort because you're kind of balancing it on the tech. So that's one thing that I try to find ways always of what can I automate or use technology to help with. Next, we'll talk about the importance of community. Entrepreneurship is kind of focused on the individual, right? It's about you're doing your own thing, you're starting your own business, but it also builds community. As an entrepreneur, you get to create jobs. You're creating products for people that people need and love. You're bringing your own imagination to life and sharing it with the people around you. You have unique offerings and look at things in a creative way, and we need to embrace that and share it with our community. So one thing to remember is you don't have to wait for a seat at the table. You can build your own table and let people come to that table and share. The next big thing is kind of a bigger skill to wrap our head around as entrepreneurs and people who are interested in entrepreneurial thinking. It's design thinking. This is a process model that can help you track progress, measure outcomes, evaluate feedback from the activities that you're doing as an entrepreneur. It can also be used to solve any other problems or track the effectiveness of projects. So design thinking is something that we kind of cook into our programs, particularly when we do the Technovation challenge. We cover this pretty extensively to help the apps that the girls are building meet the needs of their audience. And so that they fully understand and empathize with the users as it relates to the problem that they're working to solve. So the 5 steps are: first, you empathize with your customers. You put yourself in their place and, give thought to what they're going through and what they need solved and how your solution might do that. Number 2, you define the challenges. What are their needs? What are their wants? You write that out. You define what the problem is. Number 3, you form your ideas. Look at different approaches that have been taken to come up with solutions. Look at things from different perspectives and really just brainstorm, throw ideas out there of how you can solve the problem. Number 4 is prototyping. And this is where you're kind of building the products. Like, what are you going to do to solve it? What are you going to create to solve the problem for your customer? What are the different approaches that you can take to make that thing? And then lastly, and most importantly, is testing. You want to get it in the hands of the users and have them test, see where the problems are. Does it actually solve the problem that you think it will? Work with them to get feedback and understand that it is meeting the needs that they have. And like I said, you can do this for any problem, not just for your business, but any kind of problem solving that you need to do. These 5 steps are crucial, and understanding the importance of getting that user input and feedback is always really important for any project. Last, but certainly not least in my mind, is accountability. Accountability is being responsible for the outcomes of your decisions and your actions. As a leader, you're not always right, but you are always responsible. So you have to hold yourself accountable and be responsible for the outcomes of the decisions that you make. But most importantly, make them. Don't be afraid to make a decision and have it fail, because that's part of the process, right? It's you're not going to get everything right, but if you're responsible and you take accountability for what you did, you're going to move forward, and people are going to respect that. It really kind of brings us back to the mindset that we kind of started with, which is failure is not the end. It's just a step along the path to success. And if you kind of look at things with an attitude of gratitude and remember that, the failures are going to teach lessons and they're going to make things easier for you to succeed as you move forward, it can help make those fumbles a little bit easier. So that's all I had for kind of our overview of entrepreneurial thinking. So now I'd like to move forward with our panel of women entrepreneurs, hearing a little bit more about their journeys and how they got into owning their own businesses, and giving some insight to us on what that process looks like and kind of what we can expect. So I'll introduce our ladies. most of them are here so far. We have a couple, maybe it looks like Ari might not be here yet, but we'll get her when she gets here. Just quick introductions. Babette Buckner is the CEO and co-owner of Moltron Builders. Peyton, is it Moss? Moss? I'm assuming
Yep,
Moss.
that's good.
Okay. Is a real estate agent and actually an alumni of our Technovation MN program here at Code Savvy, and also a Schultz Innovation Scholar at St. Thomas School of Entrepreneurship. Audra Robinson is the founder and CEO of Rocky Robinson Self-Care for Girls. And Lynn Wehrman is the president at Digital Accessibility by WeCo. We're also waiting for Ari Odaya. She should be here soon. She is the founder and chief visionary officer at SIID Technologies, which is an AI company. So we will get started with a quick little icebreaker for you ladies. And you can kind of take turns answering this, but whoever wants to jump in first, when I say the word boss, tell me the first word that comes to your mind.
Leader.
Maybe confidence.
Responsibility. Was getting a lot of feedback off my microphone. Is that sounding okay?
It's better now. Yep. I hear a little echo, but it's pretty good.
Okay. The first thing that comes to my mind is bottom line.
Yeah, fair. All right. We're going to start. I kind of broke our questions into a journey. So first, I want to talk a little bit about how you got started as entrepreneurs. So, and again, whoever feels compelled to answer first, please jump in. The first question I have is, when did you know that entrepreneurship was the right direction for you? Was there an event or some milestone that you hit that let you really know this was the right way?
For me, it was very young. And I think that this is fitting considering that this is a event for students. But I was always the kid that had the Kool-Aid stand. And then I branched out into enlisting my neighbors, the neighbor children, to do theatrical events with me, selling tickets and popcorn to our parents. And for me, it was I just had a desire to create products and sell them to people and to also make people happy with what I created. So for me, it was really wrapping together my love for the arts, my interest in people, and just a strong desire to learn how to make a business machine run. It is still every morning I get up, and it's probably the best part of what I do is knowing that I founded a company that actually supports the careers of individuals. And it's fun to think about where we can go and the options that we can give people in their careers, but also how much money we can make together, and that there's a pure joy in that. I think that often gets downplayed, especially for women and especially for people living with disabilities. Many of us are brought up to believe that we're supposed to take a vow of poverty and sit at home and collect our support checks. But WeCo is really a living, breathing vision of what success can look like, not just for disabled entrepreneurs, but disabled technologists, people living with disabilities in a variety of careers.
Awesome. Audra or Babette or Peyton, any thoughts on how you knew how you knew this was the right way?
I'll start by stating I didn't become aware of entrepreneurship at a young age. I actually married into a family of entrepreneurs. And for me, I I learned about operations. I did a lot of the accounting, just a lot of the planning for my husband. And I I came to realize that one, there's more control when you're an entrepreneur, and two, honestly, the tax basis is a lot lower for companies than for individuals. So I thought, well, why not have a company and pay myself? Because there's several ways you can pay yourself, and I would definitely talk to accountants about the best way to do that. But you definitely can pay yourself weekly or bi-weekly or however often you want to pay yourself. And you can also pay yourself through dividends. So depending on how well your company does, there are just different ways to shelter your money. And and I don't want to say you should go into business to shelter your money, but you just can make your money and keep more of it. So building wealth um, definitely is a vehicle that entrepreneurship provides. So for me, it was, I want to say, probably my mid 30s is when I realized entrepreneurship was for me.
I can add, this is Audra Robinson, the founder and CEO of Rocky Robinson Self Care for Girls. And I was entrepreneurial at a very young age, really creative, always had ideas. And my mom just kind of set me on this path. And she's like, after I would share all these different ideas, she's like, just pick one and work on that one. And so I was really thrust into entrepreneurship when I was laid off. I did take the safe path in my mind, which was going to college, getting a degree, and then working in corporate in various marketing roles. But when I was laid off, that's when I was pretty much thrust into working on my idea and my brand full time. And so since December 2019, that's what I've been doing. And it's been a great journey. And I would just encourage students, if you're thinking about ideas, unlike my mom, I wouldn't say pick one, because who knows, maybe you can bake out a couple ideas, but, really just think about what it is that you want to sell or promote, or business that you want to start, and then start thinking through your business plan and make it happen. Just do it.
Awesome. Peyton or Ari, now that you're here.
Yeah, I can share a little bit. So I'm only 20, so I'm still on my entrepreneurship journey. But now being at a school that we have classes that are solely for that, it definitely reinforces the fact that I love being creative all the time. And actually having a major to kind of like facilitate that excitement with other students is fantastic. But yeah, I really like listening to you guys. I don't know if I have anything else on that one exactly, but still on my journey. It's been a really great time so far. But yeah.
Well, I'm much older than you, Peyton, and I'm very much still on my entrepreneur journey. So the question was, when did we know that, entrepreneur was for us, correct? I think I've probably always had the spirit in me, I guess. From a young age, I was like always very creative and solution driven from a very early age. All about finding solutions to a problem. Um, but I started my entrepreneur journey after my last corporate job, being laid off for my last corporate job. And I wanted to really, I really needed and wanted to take control of my professional and personal trajectory. I was dealing with a lot of microaggressions in corporate America, dealing with, all the all the things that come in corporate racism, and issues with pay and just being really overwhelmed and underpaid and exhausted. So when the opportunity came about for me to start consulting, I didn't even know what consulting was back then. I didn't know what I was doing. It was help. I was actually help. It was all of this accident. I was helping a friend out. He paid me quite well. And and then I realized that I didn't have to be under the umbrella of a given corporation to be able to do the work that I love, right? Like I can actually go out and do this on my own. And I started to consult, and I learned, so it was a journey, learning curve for me in consulting. But I started to learn that I can make a great living doing the things that I love and living the kind of lifestyle that I want.
That's awesome. I think kind of from my own experience too, what I'm hearing is a lot of this were, I'm going to just say happy accidents, and like jumping in when you that was the choice that you had to make. So I resonate. That resonates with me as well. What were some of the surprises that came along in your journey? Like, what are some of the things that really kind of shocked you about the process of becoming your own business owner, or surprises that came up for you in the process?
I can probably start this one off. One of the surprises for me was how much more work it was than working for someone else, and how much that wasn't a problem. Like it's actually quite rewarding, even if it's realistically it's much more work and it's harder, but it's so much more rewarding. And the rewarding piece is what was really shocking for me, because when you think of entrepreneurship, you think of, oh, I get to set my own hours, I get to do what I want, blah, blah, blah. And yes, but it's also a lot of discipline, right? It's a lot of work. But I absolutely enjoyed it. It's rewarding. And I think that was the biggest shock for me.
I think for me, it was the
surprise.
different number of hats that had to be worn. I did a lot of research before I started my business because I'm a geek. And I had my tax attorney lined up even before I had my LLC registered with the state. But especially when employees become involved, it becomes a whole different ball of wax. There's a lot more that has to do with taxes and HR practices, but then it's also managing personalities. Where we're at in our stage of growth right now is that we've had people that have been doing certain functions that they were not really that suited to, but we needed them to do. And we're getting large enough where we need to move those responsibilities onto other team members that we're hiring that are more capable. And these individuals aren't so excited about letting these duties go. So it's those kinds of ups and downs, but at the same time, I'm a Gemini, and it's like food for my brain, able to switch gears all the time. I guess that's the best way I can describe it, is that having to switch gears constantly throughout the day. And while I love it, and I'm more satisfied than I ever was working for a company or for government or nonprofit, it can be exhausting. So, and I don't know that anyone can ever prepare you for that. You kind of have to experience it to actually know what it's like.
Yeah, hi, it's Audra. For me, I would say the pleasant surprise is how much support was out there. Being a solo entrepreneur, it's very isolating. It is a difficult journey, and as Ari said, also rewarding. But I would say the pleasant surprise was how much support is out there. I applied for and was accepted to Lunar Startups. That was in March 2020. So that's when I considered that I went into business full time. And obviously March 2020, a lot of things happened. The world completely changed. So along with, coming from being laid off to now being a part of an accelerator and being in a community of 15 other really smart entrepreneurs who, in most cases, they were all a little bit further along than I was. It just immersed me in the Twin Cities startup ecosystem and all the resources that are available to help you become as successful as possible. And so that was really rewarding for me and pleasantly surprising. And not to compare and contrast to corporate, but I would say coming from that side of business where, there is collaboration, there are resources, there are people, in my case where I managed marketing strategies and launch plans, I had agencies to support. I had, the dollars that came directly from corporate to support the ideas and my goals and strategies. Whereas in this case, it's you and you got to figure it out. But yet within the ecosystem here in Twin Cities, there was just so many resources for me and encouragement, including with other entrepreneurs. So it was really pleasantly surprising and an amazing part of the journey.
I think for me, the biggest surprise has been how much business changes over the decades. I started working in construction with my husband in the late 1990s, and the way that financing happens is a lot different. The criteria is different now. So that's been one of the biggest surprises, how much business changes with economic changes. So anyone who's thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, definitely become aware and knowledgeable about the finances of your business and the operations of your business. Because the other thing that surprises me and has surprised me for a long time is honestly when I meet other entrepreneurs that know the specific trade or detail maybe of the product they're selling, but they don't understand the business or the operation of their business. So I would definitely encourage anyone that wants to be entrepreneurial to understand, and when I say the business of your business, the financial aspects, the human resource aspects, just and marketing. For marketing isn't as critical in construction as it is in a lot of other industries, but just there are so many facets that you do want to be aware of and integrate into just kind of a holistic business. So for me, I just say the biggest surprise really was how many people are running businesses that really don't know how to run businesses. That surprises me. It just does. Because
that might be why only 50% of them actually survive.
right. And how much business changes. It is amazing how much business trends change and the ability to contract and get money. And I tell everyone now, I spoke to a woman the other day who received a nice amount of money from an EIDL loan. And she was like, I haven't done anything with it. And I think I'm just going to give it back. And I told her, I said, I've learned that it's easier to get money when you don't need it. And it's hard to get it when you need it and you're trying to get something financed because you're at a deficit. That's why you're going to get it. So again, as an entrepreneur, the best time to try and finance your dream or get working capital or whatever it is you need is when you really don't need it. Don't try to go get money because, I don't know, you have a huge debt now that you need, or there's a belief, and I want to share this because I've seen it in a lot of spiritual communities that to be in debt is a sin, and so erase that thought. Money is a tool, and so if you wait until you're praying for a miracle to try and get money from a bank, you probably won't get the money from the bank. So be proactive about your financial needs and don't see money as bad. It really is a tool.
I love that. Thank you. Peyton, are there any, I know you are just at the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey. Are there any surprises that you have had with like your schooling or things that have come up in your coursework at St. Thomas that have been surprising to you?
Yeah, so kind of going off what Audrey said about that, people are so willing to help you. And I knew this, but I didn't know like the extent of it. Like, I guess being at an entrepreneurship school, that kind of is facilitated more, but just people from even just the community that I'm in St. Paul, you just pitch something and they're like, wow, I've never thought about that. How are you doing that? But I think being surrounded by entrepreneurs a lot of the time, we kind of like take it for granted that like we're there to like try to like succeed things that like we've just had in our head. But a lot of people don't think that like they could actually do that. So when they hear somebody that's like pitching something and like working on something, they're really excited to like be a part of that, because maybe they themselves like haven't thought that they could go start something up like that. So I think just like being able to talk to people and realizing that, wow, they're actually willing to help me. That's great. So I kind of just live my life like thinking, okay, I should meet this person because they might have some super cool expertise that I'm not aware of. Everybody is an asset, kind of. It's just very supportive community. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what we kind of talked about in the beginning. Like, networking is super important, figuring out how people can connect with each other and you, and not being afraid to ask for help, right? Because like there are always people around that are willing to share insights and help. So
Could I add to Babette's comment about entrepreneurs that don't understand finances, or what profit and loss is? I think that's a really important part of entrepreneurial thinking for students to bring up, because I remember, I think it was in 2018, my business was named a National Score Business of the Year. And I was flown to a conference. I think there were probably 100 other businesses that were named. And we had a large conference in Reno, Nevada, and we had some really great learning sessions. But as I walked through all of these sessions, I realized that I had gotten all of that information before I started my business. I had talked to a tax accountant. I had talked to an attorney. But that's probably the analytical side of me that probably a lot of people don't have. And what I would say is that, students that are thinking about businesses as careers, you have to understand that your passion is not enough to carry you through. It is essential, and it will help you sell your product. It'll help you be sensitive to the needs of your clients, and it will help you develop your product. But the logistics of running that business, knowing what taxes you're going to have to pay and set aside for. Right now, we're opening a learning portal. And prior to that, we have never had to pay sales tax because the products we offered were never taxable. I can tell you that this is a whole brand new world that we're hiring an organization to navigate for us, is sales and use tax, because we're going to be selling this product all over the world. And if your dream has so much more of a chance to succeed, if you do your homework on the stuff that you're not excited about doing the homework on. So I just thought that was a good point.
No, super good point. And financial literacy and procedural and HR, like all of that, there really has to be a good understanding of all of that as you go into, particularly when you're going to open your business up to employing other people, right? Like that's very, it's one thing if you're just doing it on your own, but once you start getting people and their livelihoods involved, like you need to have a really good foundation to build on. So completely agree.
And you can get yourself into a world of that he had a marketing firm that did not work out, and he was $1 million in debt in employee taxes that he did not pay. So
that is not a good place to be. Yeah, not a good place to be. Let's talk a little bit about advice. So we're giving advice to people today, kind of some insight, good or bad. What are some of the things that people maybe it was either good advice or bad advice. You can pick which one you want to hone in on. But like something that you were told at the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey that kind of sticks with you today.
You know, I have some advice, but I don't think it was given to me, so I just want to give it. So,
Perfect.
yeah. And as an entrepreneur, one of the things I've learned to do, and I would again encourage everyone to do, is stay in the present moment. As an entrepreneur, you'll have challenges that you'll need solutions for, and you'll need to be creative and or maybe work out problems. But no matter how big or what you're facing, just bring yourself back to the present moment and know that everything is fine right here. One of the worst things we do, and we do this, most of us do this naturally, is we play movies in our mind. We're either playing reruns or premieres of what we think is going to happen. So if you're playing happy reruns and happy premieres, like feel good movies, then stay with your movies. But most of our reruns are full of regrets, and most of our premieres are horror stories. So stay out of the movie making business in your mind and stay in the present moment where you're live. And really, in this moment, no matter what you think you're facing in the future, everything is fine. And this is where your power to act is. And when I say that, act with with clarity and strength, if you're not in fear from watching some movie you've projected or some rerun you're trying to avoid. That's my advice.
I love that. Thank you.
The best advice that I ever got was from my first business mentor, Amy Lindgren. She writes the employment column for the St. Paul Pioneer Press. She said that your business will never remain the same. What you think your business is going to be is not what it is going to turn out to be. And you have to be open to be able to accept that change.
Advice. Well, one advice that I've gotten that has proven quite helpful as I navigate this, space as a non-technical founder, dabbling in the AI space, is to really, how do I put this? So I guess I should just tell the story. I got a advice to be quiet and to not be so visible, right? And then I got another advice that I needed to be louder about what I was doing. So it's all about, generating awareness around the work that you're doing, the products, and you need to generate awareness in order to drive your business, right? Their outcomes, part of, sales and marketing and all of that. But when you are in a somewhat controversial space, as I am with public policy, policing, and the criminal justice space, it's, you'll have to kind of figure it out as you go. And it can be very challenging knowing when to speak, when not to, and who to speak to and who not to speak to. So, so the advice that I've gotten is to go with my gut. And, you're going to get a lot of people coming at you with many, many, many advices, many recommendations. And at the end of the day, you kind of have to go with what feels right within you, in life and in your business. What feels right when it comes to your hiring, when it comes to the decisions that you're making, what feels right and what is right for you, and your team. So that's my advice. Long-winded story, but
No, absolutely, absolutely, and I love that you're going to get differing advice from everybody, right? You need to just follow what your gut says, and that's part of that accountability piece too. Like you choose, and you're responsible for what your outcomes are. So, see, Audra or Peyton, any advice that has kind of stuck with you or that you'd like to share?
I could add to build like a trusted like board of like people you can go to, not like formally or anything like that. But I think the biggest help for me in my like entrepreneurship and just creativity is having a board of people that can give me some reason to my ideas, because a lot of them have already been through it, and they might help you be really efficient and more productive if they can help you sort out your ideas. So I just say build a good board for yourself. Yeah.
I am 2.5 years into the journey working full time on my business. And because I started, we can call it, post-COVID, post-George Floyd, there were a lot of opportunities that emerged, particularly for Black women-owned businesses. And because I was so new to everything, it was a constant stream of applications for grants, applications for accelerators, and alternative ways to have your business get some type of either resources or monetary grant supports or dollars. And I got a lot of wins very early. And then when the L's started coming, I was devastated. Like I was in tears. And the advice that I got being new from someone was, you have to take the L's as well as you take the wins. And so that, along with another advice from someone who's been an entrepreneur for quite a while, is that the way that she said it was, I am the meanest boss that I've ever had. And that idea of being really hard on yourself, in the case of also taking the L's really hard, is that, just to keep going and, staying positive, but knowing that those, the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs are a part of this entrepreneurship journey. It comes with the territory.
Yeah, we have to learn how to enjoy both sides of the coin, right? And appreciate both sides.
And the L's are not personal.
No,
That's
never.
the biggest lessons.
No,
Yeah,
it's all business.
Personal.
Yeah.
It's hard sometimes when you're close to your business, because they feel your business is personal.
Well,
so,
you pour so much of yourself into it. It's like it is your another extension of yourself, right? It's hard to separate.
Yeah.
Do any of you feel that you've ever had to give anything up to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, like financial security. Well, I started my entrepreneurial journey when I was a federal program coordinator for the Minnesota Department of Transportation. I was in government for 6 years. It was a bad fit because I was too driven to making my program work, and I had bosses that had difficult to explain emotional stakes in the failure of my program that had been occurring long before I came there. So it was not a good place for me to be, but it was financial security, and I was a single mother. I was also a person with a disability, and it was not always easy for me to find employment. So when the idea to start our business nudged me and would not leave me alone, I used my retirement fund, and it's worked out, but it's been pretty scary. But sometimes an idea comes to you and it just needs to be acted upon, and so you're willing to take that risk. But yeah, gave up a lot. to get this going.
Yeah, I couldn't say it any better than Len. The financial security is one of the biggest pieces for me that I think that I've given up to be an entrepreneur, and a personal life. You know, there's a certain level of your personal life that you give up to become an entrepreneur because there's only so many hours in a day. So yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Audra.
I think she's frozen.
Yeah, it looks like it. All right, we will we'll come back if Audra gets reconnected.
I think I'm back.
There we are.
So I would say, sorry, will you repeat the question? I got kind of stressed out when I lost.
Yeah, no. I'm wondering if there's anything that you feel you had to give up to be an entrepreneur.
Yes. I had to give up expectations of other people that I thought would be supportive. So in one case where I felt really supported by the community, by the startup ecosystem, there are also people who were very close to me who were not as supportive or didn't show up in the ways that I thought they would. And I can say just from other connections that I've made with other women entrepreneurs, it is a common theme that be it in, their relationships, friends, spouses, best friends, relatives, where people weren't showing up in the way that they expected them to. And so I think for me, just learning that you still have to keep going and knowing what your purpose is what's key. But yes, that was a huge lesson.
I think for me, I gave up a lot of beliefs. So because I was an entrepreneur, I had an expectation of how my life would go. So go to school, because I always wanted to be able to take care of myself, but my way of taking care of myself was to work in corporate America. And so I'm cerebral. I'm a natural learner. So in that way, entrepreneurship really fits me. But I had a lot of beliefs about how the world goes. I also thought people thought like I do, most of them. And true story, it really surprised me when I realized how different we all think. I don't know why I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, I think it was good when I realized we're all different, and I was able to eventually accept that. I think there's a proverb that sums it up the best. What's sin in the morning can be virtue in the evening, and what's virtue in the evening can be, they can flip flop. So basically, you just not know how people are navigating life, why they're navigating life the way they do. And I've learned to not judge it or focus on it, because I have also learned in life that, and this is one of the things I gave up, is resisting things that don't work. There's another saying, what you resist persists. So oftentimes what you try to run from or fight stays in your life. And I can't explain it on this call. It's kind of more metaphysical, for lack of a better term. We're just all very connected. And so the best way I've learned to navigate life is to focus on what I want and not on what I don't want. And so be solution oriented and not focus on the problems. And I love problem solving. So that was something I had to switch and drop, the belief that in order to have value, I needed to solve problems. So.
Yeah, a long time ago, a friend of mine told me that the universe doesn't understand no. So whatever you're thinking about, it's coming. And if you're thinking, oh, I don't want that, it's still coming. So that's a good point. You just got to focus on the things that you actually do want to bring in. Um, Peyton, anything that you feel like you've had to give up to take this journey?
Yeah, short answer, time and money. Everybody kind of touched on that. Obviously, financing anything is very hard sometimes, especially if you're bootstrapping it the whole way and there's not any grants. But I think taking other partners into ventures is how I've been doing that. But yeah, time and money.
Amen. That is the truth. Um, if you all could have taken any, we kind of touched on this with the finance piece, but any additional training that you wished you would have had before you went on this journey? Like, are there any other skills that you wish you would have honed in on a little more, or certifications you wish you had, things like that?
I will say right away.
Go ahead.
I wish I would have gotten more training about working with a relative or a spouse. That someone did mention that it wasn't going to be easy, and of course, love was going to take care of whatever problems there were. But I would definitely encourage anyone who goes into business with a spouse or relative to really find out what your styles are and how compatible those styles are, because it is another level of entrepreneurship that can create challenges that are very unexpected. So
For me, it would be a financial business course that I took later, but to be able to understand how to read your financials, how to understand when you're making money and when you're not making money, how to be able to understand cash flow and do sales projections, profit and loss projections. I'm very, very fortunate that I ran into the right classes and that I have the right business mentor who has been a good teacher in that regard. But I would have been a lot more confident about my business had I approached so much of what we were doing in building the business as something I had to go to school for. And that's, why I researched taxes and things like that and hired the right people. But I didn't spend enough time familiarizing myself with the financial portions. And it's so often, Babette said that it's so often that we get caught up in that passion. And that's the part that the passion has an easier chance of living if you take care of those practical things. So that's what I would have done different.
Absolutely. Audra or Ari?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah. If there's some additional training or certification or something you wish you kind of would have had before you jumped into owning your own business.
Yes, I think I would have to agree with Lynn on the financial piece. When I started my first business, understanding my financials was a struggle. Since then, I've, with Sid, I've participated in a handful of accelerators that have been incredibly helpful, and have walked me through like putting together our pro forma, and understanding like just forecasting and your projections and understanding what, as we're raising specifically, like how much money we need to reach a certain goal, to achieve a particular milestone. And, not just how much money, like what other resources are needed and what the costs around those resources will be. So that's been very helpful. And I'm continuing, that's a space that I'm continuing to look and seek training and better understanding. I need to continue to strengthen my financial understanding and my business planning skills.
Yeah, it's Audra. I hope my connection's okay. Same. It really has been financials. I am very much a creative person, and frankly struggled with math as a kid. Had to get tutors for that. So for me, numbers are just like, if I can avoid them, I will. And so anything that could help me at least comprehend it better. I have every template possible. So that's what's been able to help me kind of manage through, along with a great mentor when it comes to my P&L and other finances. Right now, for me, it's taxes and like getting ahead of that and understanding that. So those are the financial pieces are definitely opportunities for me.
Yeah, I think that we never stop needing to learn that kind of stuff, or refreshing it. And in the chat, we had a couple of Women Venture and Score are a couple of resources that have been pointed out as good places to go for some information for people if they're looking for that.
Yep. I'll add NDC, Neighborhood Development Center.
Yes.
I think they also offer like a 15-week course that can walk you through everything, including your business plan. So
very cool. Tell me one thing that you suggest doing every day to work on your business or the mindset over your business. If there's just like a habit that you've created or just something that you feel is very important to do every day.
Determine your one thing. If you have not read the book, The One Thing by Keller and Papasan, the founders of Keller Williams Realty, it will make your startup so much easier because it will help you cut through all of the crap that distracts you. And I don't allow myself to have a to-do list beyond 6 things if I can possibly help it. And they're all honed to my one thing. What is the goal? What is going to move the rock? What one thing by which, if you do it, will make everything easier? So
that's a good point. I'm going to have to get that.
I would say open your mail and read it on regular. True story. When I married my husband, he had a brown paper bag full of his business things, and I started going through them. In the state of Minnesota was in the process of levying $100,000 in unemployment tax, penalties and fees. He'd never had an employee. And so anyone who has employees, if you employ people and they quit, they can go file unemployment claims. And if you hire subcontractors, they're not your employees. And so if you're not, this is just one example of why you
sometimes they forget that though, and they put
you do right, and they'll go and they'll file. And if you're not opening your mail and you don't see that an unemployment claim was filed and you don't answer and say this was an employee, they will get paid. And so anyway, we did get that taken care of. We got it knocked down from $100,000 to $10,000, but I have never forgotten that. Everyone open your mail and read it.
Super good point.
Can start out really small.
It happens all the time, right? Like there's mistakes get made and they can cost you big.
Something I do every morning is I listen to a podcast that kind of gets like the business mindset going. I don't know if you all have heard of the best one yet, but it's on Spotify. They're like 15 minutes long and they just kind of talk about like different market stuff, but they're really interesting. But I've noticed that is a good way to get prepared to have a productive day while I'm getting ready in the morning. But yeah.
For me, I started a habit. I set it right on my phone, and at 9:30, it just says pray and meditate. And I use that time to remind me to set, the pace for my day, starting it with prayer and meditation on what I want to achieve for that day.
Awesome. Lastly, before we go into our Q&A session, Peyton just mentioned one, but I'm wondering if there are other podcasts or things that are kind of your go-tos for inspiration in your business. If there's things you watch or listen to or read that you might want to share with everybody.
Well, it's probably not terribly surprising that I listen to the One Thing podcast. But the other, for me, as a person that lives with lifelong mental illness, I have a dual diagnosis of chronic depression and borderline personality disorder traits. So I have to keep on top of my self-esteem, my self-care, and I really rely upon Louise Hay from Hay House. She was very popular in the 80s, but there is something about her brand of, I think it's because her background of having grown up in an abused family, in an abusive situation, her family of origin is very similar to mine. And there are times that I run a deep bath and get into the bathtub and listen to her and just cry in the bathtub. And that is part of how I'm able to be healthier, to release. So I think that there's a mix of pumping yourself up and getting yourself fired up, but also finding a way to be able to release emotion. Because trust me, there is a lot of emotion when you are employing other people. There's a lot of emotion when you're going through a tight time and wondering if you're going to be able to make those paychecks. And that is an essential part of being able to be a good boss and a good business owner, is that self-care and release.
I love Masters of Scale. They bring on really, and it's hosted by the founder of LinkedIn. So he's just brilliant anyway. But also they bring on lots of different featured speakers from across many different industries. And I've gotten a lot of strategy ideas and inspiration just from that one podcast. I think for me, I am especially being on this side of business as a solo entrepreneur. In corporate, you have speakers that come in, you've got, education that is offered up so that you can stay kind of fresh in your industry. So between a good podcast that you can learn some good tips and tricks, it's been really helpful. And it's like another friend in your office almost.
Awesome. Babette, do you have any inspirational things that you watch or listen to or read?
I used to read quite a bit, and now I don't even have time for it. But
Right.
but along the line of Louise Hay, and I'm familiar with her. I love her book. She has a book called Heal Your Mind, Heal Your Body, which is really awesome. But I actually listen to or have meditated with Byron Katie, The Work. And and it just helps me stay in the present. And it her do the work with people and learned how to do it for myself. But when I started listening to her do the work with other people, it was like I was doing the work at the same time, and it was amazing how much it was almost like a thread was just unraveling in my mind. That's the best way for me to describe it. And I just remember everything just became so possible because, and I don't know how else to say it. Everything just became so much more possible. And it was just amazing how many beliefs I had and maintained that I was unaware of. So for me, Byron Katie has been really powerful for me. And if I ever start feeling a certain way or I'm a little down, I'll put in something where she's doing the work on whatever emotion I'm dealing with or whatever situation is similar. And it's like I'm just unraveling again, or I'll do it myself. But for some reason, I love to listen to her do it and follow along as if I'm doing it with her. So
Oh, that's
Byron
awesome.
Katie, the work. Yeah.
Awesome. So I want to open it up. If there are any questions from people who have been watching, feel free to put some questions in the chat, or if you want to request your audio and video connection, I can have you jump in here as we wrap up here. But just want to give some space for people to ask some things if they have them. While we're waiting for that, I skipped over one of our questions that I kind of want to ask. Wondering if any of you have ever experienced imposter syndrome, and if so, what tactics do you use to overcome that or tamper it down?
Can I just say that since I've been working on my own brand, I don't feel that as much. It so naturally was inspired by my wanting to fill a hole where there's missing representation within self-care for girls particularly. And because that is, who I am, as growing up as a girl and then being an adult and working in CPG and with my role being finding white spaces and creating products, it just felt very natural for me compared to when I would say in some environments and some corporations where it did feel like imposter syndrome because of a lack of diversity in the space or just some of the micro aggressions that would occur. So the time that I get to spend working on my brand, doing things like this, it feels really natural. And there's that heart and passion and mission that's tied to it. And it's meaningful to me. So it makes it feel a whole lot less that maybe I shouldn't be, or I don't deserve to be in this space.
I think imposter syndrome is really typical. And I guess that advice I would give is that, understand that it's probably going to be something that you go through. I think that for us as a group of digital technologists who lives with disabilities, when we started this company almost 11 years ago, the digital accessibility space was entirely populated by able-bodied persons and largely by software. In fact, our first client that desperately the project manager wanted to hire us, it was for Gov Delivery Incorporated in St. Paul, was being told by his management that you can't possibly trust the impressions of people living with disabilities. We have software to do that. They don't know what they need. And so when we started our company, everybody was telling us we were imposters. So it was really hard to stand up. And as the leader, I had to do that. And I had to get over it. And I think when we really realized we had made it in that sense was when we were invited to appear at a meetup at the Nerdery. And they were very gracious, brought us in. They were sponsoring this meetup. And a large group of people showed up. And we were absolutely certain that they were not there to see us. And they started asking us all these questions. And our director of accessibility services, Sue Ann Rodriguez, and I remember her and I said, Sue-Ann, they're all here to talk to us. And it's, you always think you're not all that in a bag of chips. And the truth is that you are. And you have to deal with it and get over it. So
That is the truth.
Me, I suppose I had imposter syndrome, especially being in construction. And I just had the feeling that these men had more understanding of the profession or the business than I did. Now in the field, I don't know it. I can't go into the field and know what's going on, but working in this industry and working with other construction companies and many men. And I just want to share this with women, and no shade on any men that are listening. But what I found is most of the men that run businesses or appear to be running businesses or projects have women that are supporting them that are actually doing the work. So when I realized and saw that, my imposter syndrome went away, because it's in businesses, and I think it's true in corporate America. It is a team effort, and oftentimes, I don't want to say often, but sometimes the support team is doing the majority of the work, and they're making the management look good. Now that doesn't mean that management didn't start at the support level and work its way up and be fully capable of doing what their support is doing. But I have really found that a lot of people that are in management don't know how to do what support does. And so if they don't have someone doing the day to day, and especially now I'm finding with older men in this industry that are resistant to technology, they're becoming dinosaurs. And there kind of is a bit of a gap, because you have a lot of young people coming in that are awesome with technology, but the older people need to teach them what they know, but they aren't necessarily familiar with the technology to transfer those skills. So they do maybe some classroom training, but it's just so much faster and efficient and economical to use technology to transfer skills and knowledge. And I have found that there are a lot of imposters. So, but most of us, most
Very true.
entrepreneurs, I don't believe are imposters, because I
No.
mean, the rubber meets the road.
Yep.
So you have to get in there and
You're
do it.
you're
So.
you're the one making it happen, and if it's not
Mhm.
happening, you're not an imposter. If it's happening, you're not an imposter.
Right. There are
Yeah.
no imposters. I believe that even if your business fails, start another one. But I'm just saying you're in there
Right.
doing it. So you can't be an imposter just by definition of the fact that you're an entrepreneur.
Right.
Maybe you're not a good entrepreneur, but you are an entrepreneur.
Good
So.
point. So we just have a couple of minutes left here. I'm going to throw this QR code up on the screen for anybody in the audience. This is Twin City Startup Week would like us all to do a survey really quick. I will also put the link in the chat here if you want to fill that out. Let's see. Let me get the whole thing here. If you don't have your cameras available, there's a link in the chat. And I really want to thank all of you ladies for joining me today. This was a super great discussion. I learned a lot from all of you. And I hope that this session will help other people be inspired to take this journey and learn, the skills that they need to be successful entrepreneurs. So thank you all for your insights today.